Europe has often been at the crossroads of history. From its majestic Alps and sprawling plains to bustling cities and legendary empires, the region has witnessed some of the most significant events in human history. In recent years, Europe has faced tremendous upheavals, such as devastating wars and economic crises, only to emerge stronger. These struggles have shaped modern Europe, leaving undeniable marks on its culture, politics, and society. Keep watching to explore Europe's journey from war to rebirth. World War I. Known as the War to End All Wars, World War I, also known as the Great War, ravaged Europe, leaving millions dead and empires shattered. Starting in 1914, after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, and lasting until 1918, the four-year conflict saw unprecedented levels of destruction. By the time the Allied powers had won, more than 16 million soldiers and civilians had lost their lives. This was a complex war with many powers involved and many key historical events playing into it, and its legacy was lasting damage to Europe. It also brought massive social upheaval as millions of women entered the workforce to replace men who went to war and those who never came back. The First Global War also helped to spread one of the world's deadliest global pandemics, the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918, which killed an estimated 20 to 50 million people immediately following the carnage of the Great War. Along with the many other consequences of the war, the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 imposed harsh penalties on Germany, sowing seeds of future conflict. The war also marked the fall of long-standing monarchies, such as those of Austria-Hungary and Russia, setting the stage for political instability. Known as the First Modern War, World War I introduced technologies that would change warfare forever. Machine guns, tanks, aerial combat, and radio communications were introduced on a massive scale during this conflict. Although they have evolved since the Great War, these technologies are still a part of military technology today. Some of the most detrimental innovations of World War I were chemical weapons, such as mustard gas and phosgene. The severe effect they had on soldiers and civilians during this war turned the public and the military against their continued use. The Geneva Protocol, signed in 1925, restricted the use of chemical and biological agents in warfare. Those agreements are still in effect today. The interwar period. The interwar years between World War I and World War II were marked by economic hardships, including the Great Depression, which struck Europe in 1929. Hyperinflation in Germany and widespread unemployment created fertile ground for extremist ideologies. During this time, fascist regimes, most notably under Adolf Hitler in Germany and Benito Mussolini in Italy, gained power, paving the way for another catastrophic conflict. Before the discord and economic suffering, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson's vision of a General Association of Nations developed as the League of Nations, founded in 1920. Its basic constitution was called the Covenant, embodied in the Versailles and other peace treaties. The League's institutions were established in Geneva, Switzerland. It consisted of an assembly in which each member country had a veto and an equal vote. It also included a smaller council of 4 permanent members and 4 temporary members chosen by the assembly. The idea behind it was collective security, where the countries within it could seek peaceful solutions to disputes and ideally avoid any future aggression. Although it did not work out as hoped, it began setting the foundation for future European unity. However, despite the League of Nations offering a positive aspect of this period, Europe struggled economically. Some countries, like Germany and France, responded by deflation. They maintained the value of their currencies, but they reduced export prices by cutting wages and costs. Understandably, this caused social unrest for their people. Other countries tried devaluation by leaving the gold standard. It made their exports cheaper, but it made imports more expensive. The third option to control exchange was to cut the economy off from the world markets, which was the solution adopted by Germany. Most of the country viewed these exchange controls as a temporary solution. Still, for Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, exchange controls would become part of a long-term sinister policy. The interwar period led up to World War II. In hindsight, it is easy to see how the devastating war began. A number of developments made it possible and also made totalitarian dictatorships much easier than they had been in the past. The machine gun facilitated crowd control, and public address systems like the radio made it easy for one speaker to reach the masses. Films and television offered a new source of propaganda. Heavy artillery, aircraft, and fast armored vehicles provided a means for waging a blitzkrieg or lightning war. There had always been bullies and brutality, but now they had many more tools at their disposal. As all the economic instability, political unrest, and Germany's lingering resentment over the harsh terms imposed by the Treaty of Versailles came to a head, Hitler began consolidating power. He became the Chancellor of Germany in 1933 and shortly anointed himself Führer, or leader. Obsessed with the idea of the superiority of the pure German race, which he referred to as Aryan, Hitler believed that war was the only way to achieve his goal. In the mid-1930s, he secretly began the rearmament of Germany, which violated the Treaty of Versailles. After signing alliances with Italy and Japan against the Soviet Union, Hitler sent troops to occupy Austria in 1938. The following year, he annexed Czechoslovakia, but his open aggression went unchecked. The United States and the Soviet Union were concentrated on international politics, and France and Britain were still feeling the effects of the Great War and were not eager for more confrontation. World War II. Lasting from 1939 to 1945, World War II was even more devastating than its predecessor, engulfing nearly every corner of the continent. It began in September 1939 with the invasion of Poland, to which Great Britain and France had promised military support if Germany attacked it. On top of the invasion, Hitler had just signed the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact with Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, which divided Poland between the two of them. 2 days after Hitler invaded Poland, France and Britain declared war on Germany and started World War II. It was the deadliest international conflict in history, taking the lives of 60 to 80 million people, including 6 million Jews who died at the hands of the Nazis during the Holocaust. Civilians made up an estimated 50 to 55 million deaths from the war, while military men comprised 21 to 25 million of the lives lost. The cost of civilian lives was astronomical. Millions more were injured and still more lost their homes and property. The Allied victory in 1945 brought an end to Nazi tyranny, but the war left Europe in ruins. Cities lay in rubble, economies were shattered, and millions of lives were lost or uprooted from their homes. The legacy of the war would include the spread of communism alongside the horrible destruction and loss of life. Communism spread from the Soviet Union into Eastern Europe and China, and power shifted to create two rival superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Even as Europe was trying to recover from the awful war, the stage was being set for yet more conflict. The Marshall Plan. In the aftermath of World War II, the United States implemented the Marshall Plan, also known as the European Recovery Program. This initiative provided economic aid to help rebuild war-torn Europe. It played a critical role in reviving European economies, fostering cooperation, and laying the groundwork for what would eventually become the European Union. The Marshall Plan was enacted in 1948 and provided more than $15 billion to help refinance rebuilding efforts across the continent. It was the brainchild of U.S. Secretary of State George C. Marshall, for whom it was named. After World War II, many cities, including industrial centers like London, Berlin, Liverpool, and Birmingham, had been partly or wholly destroyed. Reports suggested that some regions of the continent were on the brink of famine because agricultural production, most notably food production, had been disrupted by the prolonged war. Additionally, Europe's transportation infrastructure was extensively damaged after airstrikes and artillery attacks, and the shipping fleets of many countries were sunk. Some argue that the United States was the only world power not structurally damaged by the conflict. After President Harry Truman signed the Marshall Plan in 1948, aid was distributed to 16 European nations, including Britain, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, West Germany, and Norway. Although the plan did benefit those who had fought with the Axis powers, like Italy, they received less assistance than the countries who fought with the United States and other Allied powers. Although economic redevelopment was the Marshall Plan's primary purpose, one of its goals was to stop the spread of communism on the European continent. This plan was cited as the beginning of the Cold War. The Cold War era. Although Europe certainly did not need any more conflict after the two world wars ravaged it, the Cold War emerged and divided the continent into East and West, with the Iron Curtain symbolizing the ideological split between communism and democracy. It was a period of geopolitical tension between the communist nations led by the Soviet Union and Western democracies, including the United States. Although the United States and the Soviet Union fought together as allies against Nazi Germany, they were never truly friendly. Americans had long been wary of Soviet communism and the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. Meanwhile, the Soviets resented America's delayed entry into World War II, in which millions of Russians died. These grievances grew into an overwhelming sense of enmity that, fortunately, never developed into open warfare. Soviet expansion into Eastern Europe fueled many Americans' fears of a Russian plan to control the world. Meanwhile, the USSR resented what they perceived as U.S. officials' aggressive rhetoric, arms buildup, and approach to international relationships. The arms race, which included the development of atomic weapons, did not help the tension. The Soviets tested an atomic bomb, and in response, President Truman announced that the U.S. would build an even more destructive bomb called the superbomb. Though the tensions never escalated to full-blown conflict, the stakes were high. The ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation had a significant impact on American domestic life. People built bomb shelters, and they practiced attack drills in school. Events like the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961 underscored the tension and division of the era. However, it was also a time of remarkable achievements, including the establishment of NATO and the European Union, which promoted stability and economic growth despite the ongoing Cold War. Much more could be said about the Cold War and the impacts this time had, both positive and negative, and its integral part of Europe's history. The collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989 marked the beginning of a new era of rebirth for Europe. It symbolized the reunification of East and West and the triumph of democracy over authoritarianism. This moment paved the way for the expansion of the European Union and NATO, fostering greater unity across the continent. The European Union and modern Europe. The formation of the European Union in 1993 was a significant milestone in Europe's journey toward unity. By promoting economic integration and political cooperation, the EU has helped maintain peace and prosperity in a region historically plagued by conflict, conquests, and wars. Despite challenges such as the Eurozone crisis and Brexit, the EU remains a testament to Europe's resilience and commitment to collaboration. Europe's modern history is a testament to its enduring spirit. From the ashes of war to the triumph of unity, the continent has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to overcome adversity. Its struggles and rebirths have shaped its destiny and left an indelible mark on the world. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about Europe, from its ancient history to its modern struggles, check out our book, History of Europe, a captivating guide to European history, classical antiquity, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and early modern Europe. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, grab your free mythology bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.